from there.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order of the Blackhawk County Board of Supervisors, October 23, 2018. Roll call, please.
Leyland? Here. Little?
Here.
Magsman?
Here.
Schwartz?
Here.
White?
Mr. White is at the honor flight, I believe. Is that
Yep,
correct?
he's on the honor flight today that left this morning at 7 a.m.
Okay, the next item is moment of silence. Would you join us for a few moments? Okay, join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Moving on to with our agenda, item number 1 is agenda received as proposed or amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 2 is recognition of Chuck Angel. We have a service award for Chuck today for your loyalty, diligence, and outstanding performance during your tenure at Blackhawk County. It says 22 years. Is that correct, Chuck?
25.
25 years. A little bit more than that. So would you like to come up here, Chuck? Then we'll give me a chance to say something. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We can get
Yeah, we'll get that corrected and give you a chance to
Thank you.
chat a little bit.
25 years.
Okay, why don't you give us a little background, Chuck?
Well, Dick Buchanan was maintenance director downstairs. He'd come over, approach me to come, they could get this on live TV, which we did for a while. It was on live, and then we went on just on tape. But anyway, I helped him build the system up. I spent 8 years over at the city hall, put in a system over there when my wife was on city council. And they had so much input from it over here, they wanted to do it over here. So I come over and helped Dick do that. And over the years, why I think this is the 3rd upgrade we've got in there now. And kind of built the system and went along and had a lot of input from it. And there was a time was doing a change on it that we didn't have it available to go on the local access channel. And I got a lot of phone calls wanting to know what was going on. So people were watching it. And it's just kind of grown over the years. And I've enjoyed doing it. It's been a good experience. And be able to be here every Tuesday and do that, why, it's been very rewarding. So,
Probably saw a lot of lively meetings too over the years.
yeah, there used to be some real active meetings back a few years ago. So.
Yeah. Okay then. Well, we certainly thank you for your service and board members. Anybody has anything to say?
Oh, just thank you for your years of service, Chuck. Appreciate
That's
it. And everything else you do in the community. You're quite active in volunteering and the ham radio clubs. So
Yeah, I was on
made
the
a real
cable
impact.
commission for 12 years over here, and I was on the board of adjustment for 12 years. And I've been with the Red Cross disaster team for 53 years. So I kind of get out and get around.
So you interested in being back on the Board of Adjustment?
or any of the other boards.
I got a little lively too, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 3, public comments. Would anybody like to speak with anything that's not on the agenda today? Please come to the podium, say your name and address.
My name is Dwayne Eilers. I live at 1205 and a half Bishop Street. And I have one question. I went to the county tax department. I own the property at 2265 Independence Avenue. The taxes on that property this year went up 600%. And because they said that I said the people that was renting the property live in the house. I said they're going to use it for a party house. They said it was commercial. Well, it's always been commercial, but it's rented as a house and a garage. 600%. The taxes went up 600%. And I asked them to check into that and see what's going on. There's 4 little lots there. One lot is 30 feet wide, not buildable, but it joins to the property all together. And I said, what are you doing raising this 600%? Well, it's commercial. It's been commercial for 30 years. I said, it's a really totally unfair. And I'd like to have you guys check into it to see if something could be done. And I appreciate your help and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Write down the answer.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 4, claims and payments. Item A is a resolution to approve expenditures for the county.
The county's expenditures this week total $609,739.15, 609,739.15. That includes the final payment on the jail security system of approximately $188,000 and $81,000 towards the engineers' radios. Motion to approve?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Leyland?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Magsman?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes. Okay, item B is a resolution for approving expenditures for Country View.
Country View's expenditures this week that will be paid total $380,370.99, 380,370.99. We will be paying August bills to the county of approximately $323,000. We're still holding September bills of approximately $288,000. Their bank account balance this morning was approximately $953,000.
Okay, any questions? Roll call, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion. Okay. Second, roll call.
Ms. Leyland?
Yes.
Mr. Magsman?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 5 on the agenda, receive project updates from department heads and/or elected officials. Morning, Kathy.
Good morning, Board. Kathy Nicholas, County Engineer. Just a brief update. Our maintenance crews are placing gravel on the gravel road system. Roads are open now. The water has receded. We are getting ready for winter by blading the roads, cutting brush. And Susan mentioned the radio system. All those radios have been installed in all of our equipment, and we're just, Raycom is just fine-tuning the system, and it appears to be operating nicely at this time. I wanted to mention that this Friday is our annual full-day safety meeting out at the Sheriff's Shooting Range. I have invited 1 or 2 of you to come and speak to our secondary roads employees. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and can I answer any questions at this time?
Kathy, on the radio system, since it's tied in with the public safety radio system, have you seen better coverage with it?
I think it's too early to tell. I would have to talk to maintenance. Most of the radios have just been installed in the last 2 weeks, so I will check on that and get back to you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on to item 6, minutes approved for October 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments on the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, item 7 is consent agenda. This will be made with a single resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Mr. Magsman?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Ms. Leyland?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 8, other business. This is a motion's request for purchase capital equipment submitted by Kim Veeder. This is for purchase of an operating system and SQL database for $2,682.84.
So moved.
Second.
Kim, anything?
It's a budgeted item.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, a motion to direct the county auditor to advertise for a public hearing to be held at 9:05 a.m. Tuesday, November the 6th, boardroom 201, Blackhawk County, on proposed ordinance number 142. This deals with our parking lot ordinance, originally adopted May 9th, 2006.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item C is a motion, the revision to the Blackhawk County Emergency Action Program effective October 23, 2018 be approved and recommended by Emergency Action Planning Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Does anybody want to make any comments on this?
We've been reviewing this for the last several months, made some adjustments to it, looking to perhaps, I don't know about streamline, it's still 101 pages long, so
Is there any glaring change that we should bring up?
basically minor changes, language changes in it, updating where the exits routes are, and I guess putting awareness of where fire alarms and building exits, safe rooms are in the ordinance.
Do we have dated material now? Rory?
Say that again, sorry.
Dated material that doesn't reflect where everything's at, or?
It's, the material, the program that was out there was very dated. And it did not reflect, exactly where the locations of your pole stations were, your fire extinguishers were, your building. And that was one of the things, one of the key things that we upgraded or updated in the program. And Frank, as he just mentioned, that, to me, that was probably one of the more primary things that we addressed. We also did remove various sections in the back of the program to try to condense it, make it a more simplified, easier to understand program. What our plan is moving forward is, once this is adopted, if you recall the little red binders that were in each department, we're looking at redoing that and coming up with something a little user-friendly than what we've had in the past. So that's yet to come. But as far as the program goes, I think Frank hit on most of the key items that we updated on this.
We're also looking to have this available electronically,
Right.
so that each department, as they review the plan with their staff, that they can have them reviewed electronically also.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, it goes into the red binders until we have the new.
No, the red binders will actually go away until they're physically replaced. So we'll be asking everybody to basically discard those. This program will be electronically, so this will be our program that's out there. And the red binder, however that will look moving forward, will be based off of the updates that we have in this program.
You have a timeline of when you're going to have those available on each?
I don't. We have we're going to be working with a printing company to see what the best options would be for formatting that. I know, working with Lori Glover, she has given me some really nice examples of what some other counties and municipalities are using that we can use as our guide. So.
Just so we don't have two conflicting, we have the old binders in departments.
Yep.
As soon as you can get those updated and passed out to each department, building, better off would be.
Yep, our goal would be to get this out electronically and ask for all of those red binders to be returned, so there isn't conflicting information out there.
Okay, is there anybody else got any questions, comments? Do we have a motion on this?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item D is a motion that the appointment of Alan Sage to the Blackhawk County Planning and Zoning Board be approved. Effective date's the 23rd of October 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We had a couple of good applicants. Frank,
Yeah, we did have individuals, and those that weren't appointed, we certainly want them to stay interested so that when other openings take place, that we can have them fill these positions. So we have a lot of different boards that are really important in helping the county meet its goals and objectives. So
okay. Anybody else on this appointment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B is a resolution of disposal of property at the intersection of Gilbertville and Indian Creek Road be approved, recommended by Kathleen Nicholas, County Engineer. Kathy.
Yes, could I have the TV screens on, please? So just to refresh your memory about this intersection, this is at the corner of Indian Creek and Gilbertville Roads. The Pointer Cemetery lies directly to the southeast. And several years ago, we were approached by Mr. Gail Mueller of the township, of the Pointer Cemetery Township Association. And he had asked if there was any chance that the cemetery could obtain this property since the county was not using it. The county had obtained some excess right-of-way I believe in the 50s when Indian Creek Road was realigned, and this large intersection, this area to the south of the intersection has just been sitting there for years. The Cemetery Association, they have been mowing it for many years, upkeeping. So, as I said, we were approached several years ago to see if it was possible to surplus this property. It was a low priority for us, admittedly. We did finally get around to surveying the area, completing the survey earlier this spring. We recorded it with the recorder. The parcel is approximately 0.25 acres in size, and it's a parallelogram. It's not exactly a triangle, not exactly a square in this area that we deem suitable for disposal. According to the Code of Iowa and according to our assistant attorney, Pete Burke, we did have it appraised. The appraisal cost my department $1,500. We did talk to several appraisers. The low bid was $1,500. They did appraise the property. The property was appraised at $1,600. Then according to the Code of Iowa, we send out letters to adjacent property owners a few doors away, so to speak, in the neighborhood, in the area. Ask these people if they would like to purchase the property. It would be for sale for $3,100, the $1,500 plus the $1,600. Those letters were sent out in early September. As of November 8th, the 60 days had passed, and I had received one comment. It was more of a general interest comment, but no offers to purchase the property. Therefore, I'm coming back to you to ask what you would like us to do with the property.
I guess I'd be in favor of a motion to dispose of it and give it to the Cemetery Association. If that's what you're interested in, right, Gail?
Mr. Miller, at one time, I know we talked about, or it was brought to our attention as far as some of it would be used for burials and some for roads. Has that changed now? I think something I read most recently was that there'd not be burials there in that area.
There would probably be at least one more row of burials, and that's, we wouldn't go past the old fence line that was there. Very few people probably know where that fence line was, but
You can use that.
yeah. The old fence line was approximately right here. And we probably can't go out even that far, because when they took the old fence line out And whoever had the property before buried a bunch of metal and concrete and stuff right on that old line. So you can see where our burials are right here. We would probably add some on the end of each one of these rows. We could only go out though to where the trash is. I mean, once we get out that far, we couldn't bury anything anyhow. And then we'd like to take the rest to get it filled in. I've contacted a company about trying to get a sign put out on the point, a limestone sign that would let everybody know that it's the township cemetery. And then we'd use the rest of the parking for big funerals.
Just gotta make sure anything you put out that far doesn't obstruct traffic either way.
Right, yep,
Height-wise, you'd have to follow all the rules.
yes.
I know the costs had come up at different times, and I assume the township probably doesn't have money in their coffers to reimburse the county for any of the appraisal or any of those costs, or,
Well, it'd be tax dollars replacing tax dollars.
I mean, township is county.
Yeah, we are the county, so.
no, and I know that too, but I just meant as far as the cost for, or by everyone, I guess, for other taxpayers as well, that we've spent on this particular property. So it was a question. I know you talked about condemnation at one time, mentioning that too, thought it was something that was a possibility, but this is a better route. I think, obviously, several of us think this makes good sense for your township as well.
I just couldn't figure out why we couldn't. We've quick deeded property from us to Waterloo, and we've had property quick deeded to us. I don't know why we couldn't have done the same here, instead of going through that cost.
Well, Pete said it was pretty clear that there was.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You do, under those circumstances, you do need to assess the value of the property and give the public an opportunity to purchase this. You can, at this point, gift it and quit claim deed it to the township. You can still do that, but you have incurred costs here that you are required by the code to incur. So these are legitimate costs that you have incurred, and you may not want to attempt to recover them. Actually, it's going to be, if it's gifted to the township, there won't be any recovery of that cost. But this, a quitclaim deed would be the proper way to finalize this matter once if you decide to gift it.
So for this one, we had to do it this way. It's understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
What would have happened if somebody had offered you $1?
Well, we have expenses of over $3,000 involved in this, so the board could have rejected that as not being sufficient and then still gone ahead and gifted it to you. So a low bid offer, an offer that was below the $3,100, the board could reject that and then still make a gift of the property to you.
We did something very similar when we gifted the youth shelter to the detention center. We had to have the appraisals done, et cetera.
Who acquired the expenses for that? The board of supervisors?
I believe the county did.
County engineer department, I guess from a
Yeah,
department
the
standpoint.
engineer department did all the work on it. They surveyed the land and everything around there.
Okay, because this is an item then, Kathy, that comes out of your budget? The 3,100 plus, I mean, no staff time, we know that, but as far as the $3,100 that was,
Right, we spent the $1,500 on the appraisal.
okay.
And years ago, I'm sure we acquired the property with road taxes.
I had to ask, is there a rural fund or anything that, I mean, I know it's pretty insignificant in a $7 million budget for $1,500 plus the staff time, but is there any type of a category that's better suited than the engineer's budget for something like that?
I think we do have the rural fund if you wanted to charge expenses. Was this in this year that you had the appraisal done, Kathy?
We completed the appraisal in May.
Okay. So that was it's already been, that was in last fiscal year, and the books have already closed for that fiscal year, but, in the future, if you want to pay for things like that out of a different fund or a different department, we can look at that.
Sure. We could do that maybe when we ask you to do appraisals or something too, of how we want to go about that for those type of parcels. Okay, all right. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, anybody else? I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any more comments or questions? Let's have a roll call, please.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Magsman.
Yes.
Ms. Leyland.
Yes.
Mr. Little.
Yes. Okay, we're moving on to item 9. This is our work session. This is discussion to discuss solar opportunities for Blackhawk County facilities. We have a guest speaker from Eagle Point Solar. So anybody doesn't want to stay for this, are welcome to leave or sit and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Rory Giving, Maintenance Superintendent. Just wanted to start off by saying, back in 2016, Alternative Energy Committee was established. Since that time, we have met several times. Well, I shouldn't say several. I think we've met possibly 3, maybe 4 times discussing opportunities for alternative energy with regards to Blackhawk County. Our focus has really been towards our facilities to start with, and looking at solar. And we've invited Eric Giddens, who is with University of Northern Iowa and the Energy Department, to sit in on those meetings. Eric has been a great resource for us during these meetings, and we've also invited a company called Eagle Point Solar, along with Tri-City Electric. Both Eagle Point and Tri-City have spent a great deal of time looking and reviewing our facilities and assessing them with regards to whether or not our facilities made sense to use solar panels. And so what I thought would be helpful, especially prior to budget, is to have Eagle Point do a presentation in front of the board today to kind of explain how we started this process and what the results were from the studies that were done. So with that said, I will go ahead and have Eagle Point go through the PowerPoint.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for the time to address them this morning. As Rory said, we've met a few different times to discuss the possible opportunities of using solar on some of the facilities in the county. To take a little bit of a step back here to talk about who we are. So we are Eagle Point Solar. We're based out of Dubuque, Iowa. We're Iowa's largest solar installer. We have about 550 plus projects that we've completed, about 15 megawatts of power in the field. We've been around since 2010. One of the things that we do is we do things a little bit differently than some installers out there. A big part of that is the process that we follow to look into opportunities for solar for whether it's residential, commercial, municipalities, so on and so forth. So basically what we did is we engaged with Rory and his group. We discussed the opportunities that were possible at the county. Abby from your department sent over a list of, I believe it was about 16 different meters that we were going to take a look at. We looked At the individual meters, we got the information from Mid-American on the usage from those meters. And in going through those meters, there were several meters that, because of the rate code that those meters were on, the size of the facility, the amount of consumption, we dwindled that down to about 7 meters that we believed were feasible for the county to build. Okay? So the first thing we did was we took a look at the consumption of those meters, and we looked at how much the county was spending on those meters. We determined that we would need to take a look at the 7 facilities. We went and we did a detailed site assessment at those 7 facilities. During that detailed site assessment, essentially what we do is we take a lot of measurements, we look at rooftops, rooftop condition, look at where our point of connection would be, how we would construct the solar array, and then we brought that back. We completed a design for those 7 meters, and then we were able to put together numbers, financial numbers for each of those 7 meters as well. So to talk a little bit about just solar in general, just a real quick overview of how solar would work for the county is it all starts with the panels. So these panels would sit on the rooftops of the facilities that we were looking at. Those are going to collect the sunlight and produce DC current. As a company, we only use Tier 1 equipment. So these Tier 1 panels are a 25-year production warranty and a 40-plus year life expectancy. That panel, again, produces DC current, which obviously can't be used by the facilities. That has to be inverted into AC electricity. So we would have an inverter or a number of inverters at each site that would invert that DC current to AC electricity. That then can be used by the facility. That would tie into the load center for this facility. That ties to the meter ties us to the utility. These would all be grid-tied systems, meaning that they're always going to be connected to the utility. So at any point in time that the solar array is not producing enough electricity for the facility to use it, it would just simply pull it off of the grid. So sun goes down at night, solar doesn't work real well at night, so you would be pulling things off of the grid at that point. The nice thing about the utility policy with Mid-American is they do something that's called net metering. What net metering means is at any point in time that solar array is producing more electricity than any one of those facilities is consuming, that overproduction actually goes back through the meter, it spins the meter backwards, and Mid-American gives a kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour credit at full retail rate to the county, and it holds on to those credits as they build up. As I said, the sun goes down at night, you start drawing off the grid, but now you've built up credits on the grid, so instead of buying that electricity, you're drawing against the credit you've built up. During the summer months, we have nice long daylight hours, so we build up a lot of those credits over the summer. In the winter months, we have shorter daylight hours. We live in Iowa, so these things are going to be covered with snow some part of the time, so they're going to lose the production there. But we built up credits over those summer months to cover the winter months. So our goal is to get us as close to zero consumption as possible through that 12 months. And then in April, they do what's called a true-up, and that is they look and see, did you produce more than you needed for the year? If so, they'll pay you a couple of pennies for that overproduction. Or if you haven't, then you just end up with whatever the bill is at the end of that month. They wipe the slate clean, and then they kind of start the process over. Okay? So that's just flying through this very quick, Solar 101. Any questions on that before we kind of get into what we found?
I guess you talked about roof applications. Are there more field applications that could be used also?
They can. When we did our site assessments for the 7 meters that we were looking at, it was determined that the rooftop was going to be the best solution given the area to work with. But we certainly can put these on the ground. The nice thing about a ground install is we can put it due south, 30-degree tilt, and get the best production out of it. The downside is you have a large solar array on that ground, so if you're going to use that for something else, now you've kind of eliminated the use of that. The rooftop, you're limited to the slope of the roof and the direction of the roof, but the nice thing is it's up out of the way. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You never have to think about it again. Okay? Good question. Any other questions?
So, are there solar panels that have heating elements built into them to deal with the snow?
The panels themselves do heat up a little bit, and they're black. They'll shed the snow rather quickly.
Okay.
When we produce our production numbers, we look at 50 years of weather data from the weather station at the Waterloo Airport. And so that will take into account, there are going to be certain days that these things are covered with snow, certain days that it's cloudy and it's just not producing a whole lot. So when we come up with our production numbers, all of that's taken into consideration. But they do shed snow, even on a really cold day, within a couple of days, that will come off of the
Okay.
panels themselves. Good question. Anything else? Okay. So what we did is we chose 7 meters, and we put together a detailed financial analysis report for each of the 7 meters. I'm not going to go through all 7 meters. I want to show you what the report looks like so you have an idea. And Rory has all of this data electronically. If you want to look at each individual report, you're more than welcome to do that. Either I can get it to you or Rory can get it to you. But we completed a report on each one of the meters. I'll go through one of the reports today, and then we'll look at the different financing options that we discussed in our meetings in the past. So the first one is our biggest one here. It's the Longfellow Shop main meter. This would be a 44.84 kilowatt system. We're looking at offsetting 99% of the consumption on that meter. So this report shows us what we gathered from Mid-American as far as the consumption from that meter as well as the cost for that meter. So you can see here our monthly use adds up to a total of 55,520 kilowatt hours for the year. The cost of that power is a little over $4,600 to the county. If we built an array that offset 99% of that consumption, you'd still pull about 280 kilowatt hours off of the grid at a cost of $121 annually. So how do we get to 99% offset? As I said, we would offset 99% of the consumption. That offsets 98% of the bill. Why the difference? We're still going to have a meter charge. Mid-American is always going to charge us a meter charge because we're still connected to the grid. As I said, we would build a 44.84 kilowatt system. The cost, if we paid cash for that system, my eyes are not very good, I have to look at the big one here, $90,577. That system would pay for itself in a little over 14 years. And again, keep in mind, this has a production warranty of 25 years and a life expectancy of 40 plus years. That's a 6.2% rate of return on your investment. And this cash gained over life, what this looks at is, again, this product has a production warranty of 25 years. After 14.1 years, it's paid for itself. So you still have 11 years that the solar array is still under warranty and will be offsetting that power. So during the remainder of those 11 years, you'll have a net cash gain of almost $110,000 on that 1 meter. And again, in year 25, this thing doesn't shut down. That just means that the warranty is no longer there. It does have a life expectancy of 40 plus years. So the net cash gain on this particular meter would be far greater than that. Any questions on anything on this page? Okay, we'll move on to the production. So this chart shows us the usage of that particular meter. So if you look at the light blue in the background there, that's how that particular facility is using the power. The red is how the solar array is producing power. Obviously, you can see there's much lower production in the winter months, higher production in the summer. Anywhere where that red line goes above the blue line, on a month-to-month basis, we have overproduction. That overproduction is going to carry forward month to month to month. So when we drop below that blue line, we have those credits that I talked about with net metering. That will cover that consumption during those months. We'll end up only pulling a couple hundred kilowatt hours off of the grid. This would be 2 separate arrays on the same plane, a total of 152 solar panels. Those panels are about 3.5 feet wide by 5.5 feet tall. Total, again, of about 152 of those with 2 inverters. And again, the cost to build that, $90,577. The county, unfortunately, because it's a non-taxable entity, does not get to take advantage of tax credits that are available to commercial properties, to homeowners. There's a 30% federal tax credit and a 15% state tax credit that are available currently for commercial property for homeowners. Unfortunately, because the county is not a taxable entity, it doesn't get to play in that tax game. So this is if we were looking at the county putting up cash for the particular array. This report was for just one of the 7 arrays. Oh, just about jumped ahead. This is actually an important sheet here as well. What this talks about is the environmental impact of building that solar array for just that 1 meter. So if you look at this report here, we're going to be offsetting about 1,132 tons of carbon dioxide, which is the equivalent of planting 26,000 trees, or reducing your driving by 2.3 million miles, reducing your gas consumption by 115,000 gallons, recycling over 3,000 tons of waste instead of having that go to a landfill. So these are the environmental impacts of that one array that when you talk about the city being progressive and being sustainable, this is one of the things that you can talk to the constituents about. These are the things that we're doing to make the city more sustainable.
County.
I'm sorry. Apologize there.
Are those figures over 25 years?
That's over 25 years, yes. And the environmental ones are not all of those things added together. It's either or, okay? This is just a quick drawing or a quick helioscope of what that array would look like. That's on the south plane of the building there, and then some statistics that go along with that. Total of 152 panels again, as we talked about. So we're looking at 7 meters, not just the 1 meter. This is a recap sheet of those 7 meters. So we have the sizes, the individual costs per array, as well as the current cost for electricity at each one of those meters, what the post-project cost would be at each one of those meters, and then the saving per meter altogether. So I won't go through everything here. However, if we go down to the bottom of the report here, the cost, if you were to build all 7 of these meters, would be $310,710. Okay? The cost of your electricity currently is $15,788 per year for those 7 meters combined. If we build these projects as described, we will drop your annual bill for all 7 meters combined to $840 for a savings of $14,948, or 95%. The cash gain, so the savings of those 7 meters over the 25-year warranted life of the array, is over $317,000. Questions on anything here? So this was the first option that we had talked to Rory and his group about, was a cash purchase. Then we also talked about something called a power purchase agreement. A power purchase agreement is a way for a non-taxable entity such as a municipality, a county, a school, churches, to monetize the tax credits since they're not available for those tax credits. The way it works is you have a financier of the project. So you would have a group of people or an entity or a person who would actually pay for the construction of the solar arrays. The county would allow those to be built on the facilities that we talked about. The county would enter into an agreement with the financier to purchase the electricity coming off of that array rather than paying that money to the utility. Okay? It's a real simple way of describing it. We as a company have been doing these since 2014. We actually, the city of Dubuque did a power purchase agreement with us. The utility, Alliant Energy in Dubuque, did not like that because they were going to be buying electricity off the solar array versus from Alliant Energy. They sued our company. They went to the Iowa Utility Board, said they can't do this. We're the utility in Dubuque. The Iowa Utility Board agreed. We appealed that. We took it to the Iowa District Court. The District Court said no. A utility services all customers equally. They have one facility servicing one customer. They agreed with us. Alliant appealed, went to the Iowa Supreme Court. They upheld the decision. So because of the diligent work of our owner and about $500,000 out of his own pocket, power purchase agreements are now legal in the state of Iowa. We have done about 45 power purchase agreements through Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. We have a number of municipalities, counties, schools, again, non-taxable entities that we've personally financed these for as well.
So with that, you cover the cost of building the system, and then the county would pay for the energy to you. At a certain period of time, there could be an option of buyout or going to the 25 years, and then the county would own it after that.
Exactly. So the county would enter into a 25-year agreement to purchase the electricity that comes off of the arrays. After year 7, there's multiple buyout periods along the way. So the county could purchase them outright, or they could wait for the 25-year term. And then there's a low-cost buyout. It's usually a few $100s to transfer the ownership of the array from the financier to the county at that point. And again, the 25 years is the warranted life of the panels themselves, but they do have a life expectancy of 40 plus years. So you're still looking at an additional 15 plus years of use off of those arrays once you've moved out of that contract. Okay. Other questions on power purchase agreements?
How much less is the cash savings of doing over the 25-year period if we do the power purchase versus buying them outright?
Sure, I'll get into that. We've got a couple of different options on power purchase agreements as well. So the first one that I'll go through is a standard power purchase agreement where the county has no upfront cost whatsoever. Us as the financier, we would finance the construction of the arrays, we would build the arrays, we would sell the power back to the county at a particular rate. The second option is an option where the county would infuse a certain amount of cash into it. In the example that I have, it's a $50,000 cash infusion on the front end. It's a power purchase agreement. With that cash infusion on the front end, it lowers the rate of the electricity that you would buy off of the array. And then we'll kind of take a look at the numbers and how that would play out on both of those scenarios, okay? As I'd mentioned, we are experts in the PPA field. Here's just a few examples of some of the PPAs that we have financed and construction. So Cedar County, Johnson County, City of Asbury, Dubuque, Oelwein, Piasta, City of Dyersville, and then Little Walk Lake. Again, we've done a number of schools, churches, things like that. This is just a small example of our portfolio. So this is a recap sheet if we did the straight power purchase agreement. This would be no cost, no upfront cost to the county at all. We would finance the construction of the arrays. We would build the arrays. You would enter into a 25-year contract to purchase the electricity off of those arrays. During that 25-year period, or during the time that we would own the arrays, we would insure the arrays. We would have responsibility for any maintenance, any upkeep on the arrays through the term of that contract, okay? So we have 7 meters here. One thing about Mid-American is because of the rate codes that the county is in, your electricity isn't overly expensive. So in this particular PPA, we would be looking at charging actually a penny more on some of these meters than what you're currently paying for your electricity. The rates of electricity, we're expecting the average is 3.78% per year from Mid-American. The rate increase on the cost of the power coming off the array would be about 3%. So it'd go a little bit slower than what Mid-American's rates are expected to raise at. We have also looked into, is 3.78% the right rate? We've heard as much as 5% on average in some studies that we've done, but this report is looking at the average of 3.78%. So you can see here, we actually end up having a little bit of a loss on each of these meters to the tune of the first year you would end up paying about $2,900 more for the electricity coming off of those arrays than you would off of the utility. Again, keeping in mind those solar arrays are using renewable energy. It goes towards a the renewable portfolio of the county, but there is a little bit more cost to the electricity going through a straight PPA than if you were to purchase that directly from the utility.
But if you're charging a lower rate than's anticipated that Mid-America's will increase,
Over the 25 years, that rate will likely, that gap will get bigger, so you might end up having a net cash gain at the end of 25 years. Probably won't be much. So again, to go this route is really more about the renewable side of things versus the dollar savings. That's where we go into the PPA with a cash infusion. So again, what we would do here, and the numbers that we're looking at here, is if the county infused the PPA with $50,000 up front, that way it allows us to lower the per kilowatt hour charge. The numbers look a lot different here. So in this scenario, we're charging about 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour. The previous one, we were charging 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So again, I won't go through all of the numbers here, but almost all of these have a positive cash savings. So if you look at this line here, again, that first year, your normal costs are $15,788 for your electricity. If you were to purchase off the power purchase agreement with a cash infusion, that would drop those costs to $14,246. So first year savings would be about $1,541. Over the course, and that's about 10% savings. Over the course of 25 years, if you stayed within this PPA agreement, whoa, not sure what happened there. You would have a net cash gain of $136,136. So with an upfront cash infusion of $50,000 through the course of the PPA contract, you would have a net cash gain of over $136,000. Again, there are buyout points throughout the 25-year span, and at those you can look at what would your net cash gain be if you purchased it outright. We could run those numbers too for you. So in this scenario, again, you're looking at $50,000 upfront investment, but a net cash gain through the course of the power purchase agreement of over $136,000.
that 50,000 covers all 7 facilities?
Correct. So it'd be a total of $50,000 for all 7 facilities, 7 arrays being covered, finance built by us, and then entering into the agreement on each of those. Other questions?
So I guess, Susan would need to run the numbers that if we borrowed the money to install these, what it would cost us. So we would have to evaluate each of these costs. And if you did 7, how long would it take you once you would receive a RFP approval? How long would it take you to build all 7 of them?
That's a good question. It kind of depends on our construction calendar. So there's a process that we go through. The first thing we have to do is file an interconnection agreement with the utility. That can take up to 21 business days to get approval for the interconnection agreement. Then we would put it in the construction calendar. Probably 8 weeks out on construction. Once construction starts, these are all roof arrays. There's nothing very complicated here. Jim, any thoughts? Couple of weeks worth of construction on
What's the total size?
total size. I don't have the total kilowatt, but it's, they'll say 150 kilowatt maybe.
Yeah, you're gonna have, purely on the construction side, probably 2 to 3 weeks. That's, as Ken's describing, there's a lot of things that happen before construction. There are also things that happen after construction. So we've gotta have electrical inspections and all of those types of things. Then we have more paperwork that we do with Mid-AM before we're able to turn them on. So the construction piece here is probably the short side. You're probably looking at a window of anywhere from 6 weeks to probably as much as 90 days from the day we would start the process to the day that we would actually be able to flip the switch on these. And again, a lot of it is, there's utility work on the front end, there's utility work on the back end, and that will generally take them 2 or 3 weeks for them to process the paperwork.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? The other 6 meters, you talked about the one at Dunkerton.
Sure. So there's the main Longfellow shop meter. There's also the cold storage meter at Longfellow, and the welding shop at Longfellow. The county conservation headquarters, county conservation mechanic shop, the Elk Run shop, and the Hartman Reserve were the 7 that we were looking at.
So none of our 24/7 facilities, like the jail.
Correct. When we looked at, I think, a total of 16 meters. The jail was one of them. The struggle that we come up with is when the consumption gets so large, we simply don't have enough roof space to build a solar array big enough to offset that power. When you get into a particular rate code, it's a large demand rate code, where your electricity becomes very, very inexpensive, and then you pay a demand charge against that. So in those areas, if we can't build the array big enough to get us into a normal rate code, the numbers just don't work out.
Courthouse the same?
Courthouse was the same, yes. Pinecrest, we struggled a little bit with the roof, because of if I'm remembering the facility correctly, there was a lot of dormers on the front side, which would have been the south face. So there wasn't a lot of buildable space there. We looked at a ground option there, but again, that one was because the consumption was so large, we weren't confident that we'd be able to get that off of that demand code.
So really, the 7 meters were relatively our lower buildings.
Yep.
Less use. How many employees we got at Longfellow right now?
15.
In all the buildings total?
And if I remember correctly, some of those were there was still a profit margin. It just wasn't nearly as profitable to do it.
Right. So when we looked at it from a power purchase standpoint, the numbers simply wouldn't make sense because we'd be offsetting really inexpensive power, maybe 4 cents per kilowatt hour with 10 cent, 7 cent power. It just did not seem very feasible. If those were a cash purchase, they would eventually pay for themselves, but again, it was a long, drawn-out payoff period that we didn't feel would be the right thing to at least start with. Again, these were the ones that seemed very feasible, viable projects to build. They fit very well into our PPA portfolio. We would be able to finance that through the PPA. So those were the ones that we thought would make sense at least to start with.
And they have the numbers on all the different buildings, the different buildings.
Yeah, we got the consumption numbers and what you're paying per meter on all of the facilities for the county. Again, I want to say it was 15 or 16 different meters.
I can get that information to the board.
As you pointed out, this is not just about saving tax dollars, which is important, but it's also about providing clean energy and reducing the carbon that's produced to purchase the energy we do now.
Correct, and that's a thing, when we speak to municipalities, when we speak to counties, one of the considerations that they're always looking at is what kind of a environmental impact does this have? Again, when you're looking at projecting, using renewables and being good stewards, these are things that go towards that. So even if you end up having a small cost towards that, it's going towards something. It isn't lost completely.
Of course, at the courthouse here, Tom, we could build that parking ramp and then solar panels on top of that. There are options.
Yeah.
I think that our reserves are really healthy, and we
Yes.
added another $400-some thousand from last year, where we originally anticipated spending $2 million, and so we've got. I mean, there's money to invest.
And as we went through these, and I think the last meeting that we had with Rory and his group, the cash infusion seemed like that would be the best way to move forward. Again, obviously, there's $50,000 that has to come from a budget somewhere in that. However, that does give you the best return on that investment with some upfront cash put into it.
Okay, all right. I know when we had the presentation in the committee, I'm still really interested in the courthouse and the jail. Was it possible? I mean, I know that the numbers, it was just a longer payoff if we were outright purchasing them. But is there physically enough space on either one of those facilities to meet demand or get? I'm not sure if those numbers that were presented at that time included just the maximum amount of panels we could fit physically.
But you can always put panels on your building, but to get enough panels on there to drive that cost below, that's the struggle, correct? We can still put panels on our facilities to reduce the amount of carbon, greenhouse gas emissions, being environmentally responsible. We could go that route, looking at those larger facilities, still reducing that part of it, which is part of our mission statement. But to physically get enough panels on those buildings to drive that cost to the point where it goes below what we're already paying, that's where we run into trouble.
And that only makes the power purchase agreement less feasible, but the outright purchasing of them, which is something I think we're in a position to do right now.
And we can certainly revisit those preliminary reports. We did not do a detailed site assessment on the jail or the courthouse, or the ones that we did not feel were real feasible. We can certainly go through that process on that and nail those numbers down. From a cash purchase perspective, that changes things when you're buying outright versus going through a power purchase agreement. We can certainly run those numbers and take a look at them and see, if any one of those facilities seems to make sense. We can absolutely do something there too.
Can I make a comment from the back row here? I apologize.
Why don't you come up to the podium and state your name,
Yeah.
please, for the record?
My name's Jim Pullen. I'm the general manager at Eagle Point Solar. And I just want to expand a little bit on what Kent mentioned here. Our process here, as Rory and his group has figured out, is pretty deliberate. And it's part of where we're at right now is really to try to figure out what the county is trying to accomplish. So having discussions with you about the courthouse and the jail, we want to get as much input as we can on what works for you. We looked at this from one perspective, but we've also met with a small group within the county, and they've been very helpful, got us everything that we needed. But we also know that the goal here is to try to get you where you want to go, okay? So we absolutely can go back and look at these. Again, we'll give you our thoughts on what we think makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I think the other thing relative to the way that these projects would get financed, remember that these tax credits are in there, and theoretically, if you're using a power purchase agreement, you're indirectly getting the benefit of the tax credits because we can monetize those. Therefore, we can drive your cost of power down. So part of what I would suggest as you move forward is look at the scenario of paying cash versus the scenario of entering into a power purchase agreement with a budget item to say we're going to buy this out in year number 7. In other words, I'm going to buy it out as soon as I can. Because there are cases where it's less costly, you will invest less cash if you buy it out after year number 7 versus just an outright purchase. So again, the process is pretty deliberate. We ask a lot of questions, but at the end of the day, we really want to know what you want to accomplish, and let's see if we can figure out how to get you there. So when you look at the jail, the courthouse, and all of those, we certainly are open to taking a look at those, but we're just giving you what our initial thoughts are here. So
I guess those facilities, we could look at different options of doing those facilities.
yes.
And then you're used to doing this competitively.
Mhm.
As a county, we
Yes.
have to do the RFPs and send them out so other people can participate in it.
Yeah, we don't have any issue with that. You know, we do the homework here. Our goal, again, is to try to figure out if there's something here that makes sense for you, because there are cases where this doesn't make sense. We work with competitive bidding all the time. You know, that's just.
So if we wanted to look at our larger buildings and do that differently than these 7 that you've identified, that's an option to do that.
We absolutely will come out and take a look at those. There is some flexibility here with Mid-Am as well, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but with Mid-Am, you have the ability to move to different rate codes, okay? So we could stay here for 3 hours and talk about rate codes, but essentially the rate code you're in right now, there's 2 pieces to your bill. You pay for kilowatt hours and you pay for demand. The demand piece is where we have some difficulty because it'll be a chunk of your bill, and a solar array may or may not reduce that demand charge. With Mid-Am, they give you the opportunity to say, as one of their customers, I want to move out of that rate code if it makes sense for you, okay? So in some cases, building a solar array will mean that moving you out of that demand-based rate code, even if we can't get to 100% offset or something, you know, might make sense as well. So I think there's a few things to look at here. You know, we did some initial numbers on some of the larger buildings on the front end, but I'm repeating myself. We certainly will take a look at the ones that you want us to.
Obviously, the county will be looking at the budget, you know, particularly starting in January. These are time to address these issues.
Sure.
Look at how this could be funded if the board decides to do that.
Absolutely. Any other questions since I pushed it aside?
You and I, do you have any input you'd like to give to us on this?
I guess I'm Eric Giddens. I'm a program manager at the Center for Energy and Environmental Education. Rory invited me, as he said earlier, to sit on this committee, and I would just say a couple of things. I think I can attest to the expertise and professionalism of Eagle Point. They've kind of talked about the process that they've been through with getting net metering, you know, as a viable option in the state of Iowa, all the way to the Supreme Court. So we look at that as a real progressive thing that they've done. The process that they've followed up front to do all of this analysis is very robust. It's super diligent, and you know, it conforms with industry standards and best practices. So you can trust that what they've done, you know, is the right analysis. So I guess I don't have anything further to add than those things. We don't have any vested interest in them per se, other than we just want to see something done right for the environment and for the the county and for the people of the county, and I think that this is the right direction to move in. So I appreciate your looking into this. Thank you.
Well, like Frank indicated, this is clearly a budget item, so it's good to get this information now. And at that time, let the board, I'd be more interested if it was in our major buildings than I would be with some of the smaller buildings out at Longfellow. I think that gives you a better example of true energy savings. So I'd be waiting more for the jail, the courthouse, and the Pinecrest building. Yeah, Sheriff.
I think we missed a few buildings too. We've got a lot of square footage out at the range on those buildings that are built out there. The impound garage, those are all low energy consumers, but large footprint, large surface area. So there may be ways to incorporate more buildings to help generate the offset on the larger, more expensive.
I think the jail's going to be a challenge, and I've told this before, due for the 24/7. If you have low cloudy days and so forth, it's going to be a challenge for that facility. Frankly, as Rory indicated before, our electricity is relatively cheap for the county right now. And so we're going to have to take a look at all them factors. But again, we'll probably discuss this again at budget time and decide at that point which way, if the board at that time wants to move on.
One more point I'd like to make as well, just so there's an understanding, and Rory kind of brought this to my attention to bring up. The way that this works is the utility requires that the solar array resides on the structure that it's feeding a meter to. So when we think about locations for this, if we have a great rooftop to put a solar array on, and we have a building next to it that's metered separately that isn't in a great position for solar, we can't put the solar array on one building and feed the power to another building. So those are other considerations as well. But getting back to Jim's standpoint, our goal is to determine what the goal of the county is and present you with the information that we put together so you can make an informed decision on what makes sense for the county to reach its goals.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to thank you and appreciate
Yeah.
all the data that you've collected and research that you've done on this project. I think it's a real opportunity for the county, not only to save money on energy, but also to reduce our carbon footprint.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and we'll continue to get information. Rory, is that committee going to continue to meet then, or have they achieved their goal?
No, we just started. This is our first, solar was kind of our first stab. We're going to continue with this committee moving forward, and we'll look at other, opportunities out there. But I just wanted to thank the board for your time today. Like I said, this committee, it's a small committee, but everybody who is on this committee has been very actively involved, and we just really wanted to get this in front of you, especially prior to budget. I know that both Kathy with Secondary Roads and Mike with Conservation are very interested in their sites, and so that way at least you have some sort of upfront heads up if this is going to be a topic of discussion at budget time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be something to take a look at. And it's nice to know we got healthy reserves, so that we can tell the taxpayers we ain't gonna raise taxes. Right? Okay, is there anything else on this subject? Okay, then, moving on, any reports or information from the board? Rory, before our hearing on the parking lot, make sure each board member has an updated copy of the parking lot permits.
Yeah, you actually should have received that. I think we've sent that out a couple different times now.
Recently?
Yeah, within the last few months. And there's been no change.
As long as there's no changes, make sure we have a current copy for that meeting.
I will resend that up again. Also, just on that note, since you brought that up, I plan on sitting down with Dana. I know she had put this item on there. And we are actively reviewing that. Obviously, this is something that's been a topic of discussion for several years. And so we wanted to make sure that we made the ordinance or give the Board of Supervisors every piece of information we can come up with to make, to make that decision, so, thank you.
Frank?
Mention that there's an opportunity to greet our Korean and Vietnam veterans that are returning from the honor flight. They arrive at after 9:30, closer to 10 o'clock at the Waterloo Airport, so I'd invite everyone out there to welcome them home after their day out in Washington, D.C.
Weather fine out there? It's projected
It's
to be.
as good as it can get.
Oh, that's not bad
Beautiful
for
day.
October.
Yep.